Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, the USA Today NFL wire sheet that covers the Arizona Cardinals. And we are still within the opponent preview series. We're each summer heading into July and heading into training camp. I do a show with an opposing team, one of the teams that the Cardinals will play that season, a guy that covers them, usually from our NFL Wire. And this show is dedicated to the Seattle Seahawks, whom the Cardinals will host on Thursday Night Football in Week 4, and then face them on the road in Week 10. And joining me on the show is a man who has been on this show multiple times before. Now, I don't remember if it's been how long it's been since you took over, but now the managing editor of Seahawks Wire instead of just a contributing writer, Kole Musgrove. How you been?
I've been well, my friend. It's going on year 2 of being the full-time guy.
Okay. So last year before last season, you were when I introduced you last year, you were still the Seahawks Wire managing editor. But before that, he was a contributing writer and if you follow Kole on social media, he loves his Pacific Northwest teams, and he is. I haven't seen it recently, but after every Mariners game, like Big 81, hey, they're going to be 162-0, and then if they lost, they're going to be 161-1.
I have temporarily paused that bit just because the Mariners have been so frustrating, and I'm so frustrated the team just not doing it nearly enough. The management ownership, but I'll probably resume that once after the All-Star break.
Awesome.
I'll probably get back on that.
What we're going to do in this show, we're going to talk about Seattle's last season, their first year under head coach Mike Macdonald. We'll go into the offseason of free agency and the draft, and then wrap things up of expectations for this coming year, as the Seahawks are perhaps the most intriguing team in the NFC West in terms of what can they be because of some of the moves we made. That said, last year they were a big question mark entering the 2024 season. Mike Macdonald is a brand new head coach. They start the season kind of in the struggle bus. They go 3-0, but then go 3-3. They end up 4-5, and then come out of their bye week and win 4 straight. They finish the year 10-7. They do lose the division ultimately to the Rams, who came on strong. But this almost was but still 10 wins. They swept the Cardinals, much to all the Cardinals needed. All the Cardinals needed to be in control of because they were in control of the. They were in control of the NFC West when they played Seattle in Week 12. And if they just needed to win one of those 2 games in Seattle against Seattle and beat the stupid Panthers, they never should have lost that game. And then they would have been probably division champs. But no, they come out. Leonard Williams basically single-handedly wrecks that first game. He has a fantastic year. Well, he goes through a stretch. Tell me about last year, because it had to be with Mike Macdonald. It had to be a bit of a roller coaster to start out hot, then to kind of fall behind, get hot again, and then ultimately miss the playoffs with 10 wins.
So last year roller coaster is a great word to describe it, because in many ways the Seahawks took tremendous growth. It was a change of pace, change of culture. Pete Carroll will always have a special place in the hearts of the 12th man everywhere in the Pacific Northwest and across the country. But there definitely was a sense that, it was time to move on. Now Pete's landed in Vegas. I think that's a perfect spot for him. I think the Raiders are going to be great with him. I truly believe that. But McDonald came in, fixed the defense up. The defense had been struggling for years, but in many ways, it felt like a continuation of the last few years of Seahawks football, which is you have a pretty good start. You find yourself in first place in the first half of the year, and then you suffer a midseason collapse. And then here you are, the last week of the season, 9-8, 10-7, hoping for a couple. Your fate's out of your hand. You're hoping for another team to win, and unfortunately, Seahawks were yet again left on the outside looking in, which led to a lot of changes this offseason. We'll get to that here in a bit, but overall, there's a lot to be optimistic about with the Seahawks. Like I said, with the defense, we went from one of the worst defenses in the league to arguably a top 10 unit, top 5 unit even by the second half of the year, led by Leonard Williams, as you so aptly pointed out. I'm sure Kyler Murray is still having nightmares of Leonard Williams terrorizing him.
Well, and also Leonard Williams named number 99 of the NFL top 100, and Trey McBride is like, it's so frustrating watching him impact games. He's just a game wrecker. And that game, that first game, 2.5 sacks, 4 tackles it was, oh my gosh. He like that spot they had, Tristan Colon, it was Yeldon Froholt starting center, and at the time Tristan Colon at right guard, and he just ate them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was atrociously bad how poorly the line faced Williams. But he was on a hot, because the next week he had the interception and for a touchdown and a blocked kick and sacks as well. I don't know if I've seen a defensive tackle do have a 2 or 3 game stretch like he had before.
Oh, it was unbelievable. And he that game against the Jets, following the one against the Cardinals, it's clear he was pissed because he was hoping for the NFC Defensive Player of the Week.
That's right. He didn't even get Defensive Player of the Week.
It went to Kobe Bryant, which fair. Okay,
that's right.
Kobe Bryant, the game-changing pick 6. I get it, but he was salty. And he took it out on his old team.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Now, the defense was interesting because the second half they got really good, but they were really not good, especially against the runner in the year. Mm-hmm. You brought in the Seahawks had brought in two brand new linebackers.
Oh yeah,
and then dumped them both. But when they got Ernest Jones, things turned around, and suddenly their run defense was incredible the second half of the season for the most part.
So this is kind of I talk with my friends all the time, the many differences between how the Seahawks operate as a franchise versus their neighbors, the Seattle Mariners, operate as a franchise, which the Mariners, they'll sign a player and he'll stink, but by God, he's going to be in the lineup because they don't want to lose a trade or transaction, and they need to prove to be right.
He'll come out of it. He
won't. And he never does. But with the Seahawks, the worst thing you can do in business is make a mistake, sure. The next worst thing is just double down on the mistake. That is not something the Seahawks do. The Seahawks decided to, go bargain bin shopping for linebackers with Jerome Baker, Terrell Dodson, really just kind of transition away from kind of the Pete players, find some pieces just to kind of be placeholders. Really, they were both on 1-year deals, so it's not like either one was in Seattle's long-term plans. But it was clear this was not working. They were getting blown up, getting washed away. It was falling apart. So what did they do? Well, they trade for Ernest Jones. They only gave up like a 4th or 5th round pick, which I still don't know how the Rams ever decided to let that guy go.
Ernest Jones was one of the weirdest situations last year because he was super productive for the Rams. And then they trade him to the Titans when they didn't really have a guy to replace him. And then the Titans, as bad as they were, but they didn't like him there. And then he's found a home in Seattle where he was good and he re-signed. I know he's dealing with
pretty team-friendly contract too. If I recall, I don't have the numbers specifically on the top of my head, but it was enough where it's like, whoa, he really did want to be here. And I think that there has something to be said about finding a place where you feel like you're wanted. I mean, the team that drafted him shipped him out of town. The team they shipped him out of town to shipped him out of town.
and in less than a season.
In less than a season. And so then now he gets to live in the beautiful Pacific Northwest with no state income tax for a team that has shown they want him. And, you know, there's something to be said about that. And he's a leader, immediately became a leader. And with him paired with rookie Tyrese Knight, that was the turning point for Seattle's run defense. Then it became, okay, all right, this is a legit unit. Mike McDonald is working his magic. So that definitely was the turning point.
What were the other highlights and disappointments or surprises, the positives and negatives that came from last season, player-wise and team-wise?
Well, some positives. Julian Love certainly proved that the Seahawks signed him for a deal a couple years ago from the Giants. They gave him an extension very quickly afterwards, proving, hey, they view this guy as a legitimate leader in this team, and he proved it. He was an awesome safety for us, as he's always been. Derek Hall, second-year player, he barely saw the field his rookie season. Looked like a total bust. Nope. Turned it on, proved to be a legitimate pass-rushing force. That was a highlight. Obviously, Leonard Williams, just game-changing talent. The other highlight being Jackson Smith-Njigba. The breakout for the Buckeye, proving that, okay, yeah, he was worthy of being the number one receiver taken in his draft, being the first receiver off the board. He proved to be arguably a number one talent. Now, will that hold up without DK Metcalf drawing attention? That remains to be seen, of course, but certainly the emergence of Jackson Smith-Njigba as a legitimate weapon was a huge highlight for the Seahawks. Disappointments, here we are, over a decade later, the offensive line. I hate to play a broken record, but until they patch up that record, it's going to keep making the plays. It was as bad as I've ever seen it. I've never seen, not since 2005, have I seen a good Seahawks offensive line, and last year's unit ranked among the worst I've ever seen, which is an absurdly low bar. I mean, the first game, they gave up like 2 safeties. I've never seen that. And it was all just from like holding and false start penalties. Like it was the Seahawks have never played a normal game ever. And
I know. I know. They can never play a normal game ever, especially against the Cardinals.
No, those are always, and State Farm Stadium is just a bizarre, cursed place for us. Other disappointments, we hired Ryan Grubb, offensive coordinator from the University of Washington. He, led the Huskies, the best offense in the country while he was there with Kalen DeBoer, thinking, oh, he's, pull him over, see if he can transition, bring some of the creativity. And it was very clear he was over his skis. He's a fabulous college coordinator. Now he's down at Alabama again. I'm sure he's going to be fantastic. But it was running an air raid style offense for a head coach who really wanted to run the football. And there were times where he just forgot Kenneth Walker existed. That was a major disappointment. And then just overall, just not making the playoffs again. I mean, I know that that's kind of the bigger picture, but it was so close. It comes to the 5th tiebreaker, and the Seahawks just gave winnable games away. Losing to the Giants in week 5, losing to the Rams in overtime, a game that they were controlling the entire time. Just moments like that where it's like, had they managed to sneak in at the end, I wouldn't say Super Bowl, they would have run into the monsters that are the Philadelphia Eagles. But, they were playing their best ball at the end of the year. Maybe they could have done something. But instead, they're on the outside looking in, like I said earlier.
And that leads us to the offseason. Coming up next on the Rise of Seahawks podcast, the Star Cardinals talk. Let's come back and talk about the moves they made in free agency, offseason, and the draft. That's coming next on the Rise of Seahawks. We're back on the Rise of Seahawks podcast, Best of Cardinals Talk on the web, talking to Kole Musgrove from Seahawks Wire, managing editor, as we discuss the offseason that the Seahawks had. And they had an active offseason for sure, as they made major changes. They released Tyler Lockett. They traded DK Metcalf. They traded Geno Smith. They lost Draymond Jones. Well, they cut Draymond Jones. They cut Rayshon Jenkins. They cut the fat on this. Laken Tomlinson leaves in free agency. They released George Fant. They released Trey Brown, ends up going to the 49ers. And of these guys, and then there were additions in their place, but how much are they going to miss Geno, Tyler Lockett, and DK Metcalf in particular?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it? Geno Smith, for the last 3 years, has been objectively a very good to potentially great quarterback at times. I know it's hard for people to not think about his time on the Jets and then him just being a backup for 400 years with the Giants and the Chargers and even the Seahawks. Ever since he became a starter for the Seahawks, he has been a very good quarterback. In fact, since 2012, I think he leads the NFL in comebacks or game-winning drives with 12 of them. He was an exceptionally clutch quarterback down the stretch. It's gonna, and he was, he's 34, but he has fresher legs because he spent all those years on the bench, not playing, not accumulating miles on his tires. How will they miss him? That's gonna be a tough one. I think I was always in the camp that the Seahawks should have re-signed him and should have re-signed DK Metcalf. I was very much of the camp that you don't move on from a player like DK. And as far as Geno, my question was, who is out there that is better? Now, we can say Sam Darnold probably has a higher ceiling. Okay. He also has a considerably lower floor, which to me...
That was, for me, like, you're moving on to from Geno Smith to Sam Darnold. Did you even get better?
Well, that's the thing. So
he just got younger. That's all you did. That you got younger.
You got younger and cheaper, which isn't bad. Sometimes the NFL, you get what you pay for. Sometimes you strike it rich with the gamble. But given Sam's boom or bust potential, it's hard for me to see that this is anything but a lateral move. Now, that being said, if you could recapture even 70% of what he was able to do in Minnesota last year, maybe not the raw numbers, right? Kevin O'Connell, Justin Jefferson, you play in a dome. That's an offense-first team. Seattle is going to run the ball with Clint Kubiak as offensive coordinator, with Mike McDonald's head coach. So am I expecting 35 touchdown passes from Sam Darnold? No, I am not. But you can have a low statistical season and still be a good quarterback. You just got to be, the point guard, the distributor, the one who doesn't lose the game with bad fumbles or mind-blowing interceptions. Did they get better quarterback? That remains.
Which is, like, if you're looking for that, then you're like, oh, but that is Sam Darnold.
Yeah,
his career, that is Sam Darnold to a T.
That is Sam Darnold. And, I wowould say that Sam Darnold is one of the more pressure-sensitive quarterbacks. The well-documented, seeing ghosts, the 11 sacks he took between the Rams and the Lions in the last 2 games of the season. We saw flashes of the old Sam Darnold, pumpkin mode. So it's like, oh, okay. Oh, well, at least he has an offensive line in Seattle. So there's reason for concern. There is undeniably reason for concern, but there is reason for optimism. If it is true that Sam's has turned the corner in his career, and what we saw in Minnesota is indicative of what kind of quarterback he is now. Like, it wasn't just a fluke that, okay, the year he spent in San Francisco kind of learning under Shanahan and then going to Kevin O'Connell, maybe finally clicked and unlocked. For example, by the time he was 27, I heard a stat. I might get the numbers a little off, but by the time Sam was 27, he had like 50-something starts in the NFL. By the time Matt Hasselbeck was 27 or 28, he had never started a game. So maybe that experience has been a bumpier road for Sam to get to where he is now. Who knows? Or maybe last year was really just a flash in the pan. But what is giving me even more optimism is the Seahawks did sign Clint Kubiak, who was Sam's quarterback's coach and passing game coordinator when they shared the same season in San Francisco. So Clint is very acutely aware of what Sam is and is not. I think he's going to be able to find a way, or the best possible situation to put him in, put him up for success.
And then on top of that, they add Cooper Kupp.
Mm-hmm.
They add Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And then you look, they add DeMarcus Lawrence on defense. And more recently, Shaquille Griffin returns after it's not quite the homecoming that Calais Campbell had coming to Arizona, but it is a return for sure. So of the players that they added in free agency / trades, obviously Sam Darnold should have the most impact. Who do you anticipate making a large positive impact on this coming season?
So before I answer that, I just want to mention homecoming. The Seahawks kind of did have a number of reunifications. So for example, Kubiak brought his entire staff from New Orleans, which I hate to keep mentioning him, but I'm so excited for him and what he can able to do, because it feels more like a professional unit, whereas Ryan Grubb, college, doesn't really know what he's doing. Kubiak's coming with his entire crew and system. But who did he bring? He brought Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who we had for half a season with New Orleans, where he showed that he still got some juice left in the tank. DeMarcus Lawrence, he was in Dallas with our defensive coordinator, Aiden Durde, when he was his defensive line coach. So there is, some familiarity across the board with our staff and some of the players. The player I think will make the most impact in free agency will be Cooper Kupp. Now, I'll admit, I'm biased. I went to Eastern Washington the same years Cooper Kupp was a player. So he was, while I didn't share a class with him, I do count him as a fellow classmate.
Yes.
If you see him walking around the Cheney Safeway, I count it. Which, by the way, it feels like finally some restorative justice has been brought to the Seahawks, that Cooper Kupp is now a Seahawk. He should have been ours the whole time. And watching him have so many wonderful years with the Rams has been a personal level of pain for every Seahawk fan who went to Eastern Washington University.
I bet.
I think Cooper Kupp still has a lot to offer. Now, everyone always brings up his health. Okay, yes, that is fair. He has not been as healthy as he was when he won the Triple Crown back in 2021, right? But last year he still played in 12 games, and in those 12 games he still had 67 receptions for over 700 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's still great. That is still an impact player, moving the chains, veteran leadership. You're still a legitimate weapon. If Cooper Kupp can replicate that in this offense, then that's going to be a huge impact. Because again, you have MVS to be your deep threat. You have JSN to be your number one guy. You're still going to need to move the chains. Having a security blanket like Cooper Kupp, who can just run those little out routes, who can do slants just to pick up that 3rd and 2, that 2nd and 5, you're going to be able to sustain drives. And I think that's going to be kind of more meat and potatoes of what this offense is going to be.
Moving on to the draft, Seattle takes in round 1. They got the small school guy, a guy that was connected to him for a long time, Gray Zabel, North Dakota State. It looks like he's going to be playing guard. He played tackle. Mm-hmm. He played all over the offensive line, but he's going to replace Laken Tomlinson. Is that what's going to happen to left guard?
Oh yeah, he is. And that was such a refreshing pick. Like, it was so for years and years, the Seahawks had the reputation of always having the head scratcher first round pick, right? Rashad Penny, Bruce Irvin, who ended up being a nice player, but at the time we're like, what? Always always an interesting selection. Now we kind of have an idea. It's been 2 years without Pete Carroll calling the shots, and it's been 2 years of very logical draft picks. So I think we can pin some of the curious decisions with the draft on Pete. But yeah, they needed a guard, and they drafted arguably the best guard prospect in the draft. They're putting a lot of eggs into the rookie basket, but he seems like a player who can live up to that kind of expectation. I mean, North Dakota State, that's basically the Alabama of FCS.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. And and that left side of the offensive line, if Zabel is anything decent,
mm-hmm.
you're in a good position. Charles Cross, solid. Gray
Mm-hmm.
Zabel, if he's got, there you go. Hopefully Oluwatimi is better in year 2.
Mm-hmm.
And then
we don't need Zabel to be Steve Hutchinson. We just need him to be a starter.
Yes.
I hate to keep bringing my Mariners into this, but if the Mariners just had an offense that was just okay, they'd be in first place. But no, they're bad bass weighing down a great pitching staff. Same thing with the Seahawks. If they can just have an okay offensive line, they don't need to be the Eagles. They don't need to be the 05 Walter Jones team. They just need to be not like turnstiles. They just need to. So, Gray Zabel, love the pick. And then the Seahawks then immediately followed up with Nick Eamon-Warry in the second round. They trade up in the second round to grab him. And that's a guy that a lot of fans, it was Zabel was the pick your brain wanted. Eamon-Warry was the pick your heart wanted, pairing him up with Mike McDonald. And then the Seahawks found a way to have their cake and eat it too.
Right.
So first 2 picks, boom, boom. The 2 you didn't have to have either or. So that one's a pick that.
Well, Eamon-Warry, who's got like the physical traits, like everyone says, the physicality, the size. Cam Chancellor, and that's going to make everyone go crazy in Seattle because Cam Chancellor was part of that defensive backfield. But yeah. So
probably utilize him like a Kyle Hamilton type guy that McDonald used in Baltimore. I will say this: it's going to be weird because we'll see if it stays. But Eamon-Warry's chosen number 3 as his jersey.
Interesting.
It'll be weird to see number 3 back in action, but on defense.
Does he look like he's going to be a starter this year?
Starter, I don't know. He's going to see the field though, because McDonald likes having multiple safeties for confusion. Julian Love is your starter. Kobe Bryant is your starter. Who the reason why they moved on from Rayshawn Jenkins is because he got hurt. Bryant took his spot and never gave it up. So you have 2 starters right there. So Eamon-Warry will see the field. I don't think he'll be a starter unless there is injury involved.
Okay. And then other round 2 pick, tight end Elijah Arroyo. And then in round 3, Jalen Milroe. That was a super intriguing pick. Before we get to Milroe, what do you think Arroyo's going to is he going to factor in this season?
I do. Again, with Kubiak, he knows how he uses tight ends in the system. The Seahawks have been lacking an explosive playmaker at the tight end position for as long as I can remember. I mean, yeah, they had the few years with Jimmy Graham, but that never fully worked to fruition the way everyone wanted it to. Like his first year, he was looking solid, then he gets hurt. His second year, he had 1 million yards but never scored. And then his last year, he had like 2 yards but 10 touchdowns. Like it was, they could never get it all together. I think he'll factor in. He's a speedy guy down the middle. I think it's going to be, Noah Fant in the 3 years he's been here hasn't really made much of an impact. AJ Barner, the rookie last year, was pretty solid. He had he had as many touchdowns in his 1 year as Noah Fant did his entire time in Seattle. But he's more of a blocking tight end. So there's, he'll be involved, but that seems more like a tight end 2 kind of guy. Yeah. So there's room there's an opportunity for Arroyo to take it if he can.
And then, what are your thoughts on Milroe? Do you think he's going to turn into something as a quarterback, or will he remain a package player?
I do think he'll turn it. So the biggest thing with Milroe, everyone always talks about it. He's more of a project than a prospect. You got to work. You got to put the time in. You got to invest time to have him develop. He has all the physical traits. The problem is he has trouble hitting the broadside of a barn, which is
You want your quarterback to be able to throw the ball to a guy and have the other guy be able to catch it. That's
little more precise. So he's a raw project. However, I think that grabbing him in the third round, that is the perfect place to take him. You take him to a stable franchise that is committed to a quarterback. Like, there is a starter. Like, whatever you think about Sam Darnold, good or bad, the Seahawks have committed. Nope, Sam is the starter. They've said that, Milroe will see the field, probably be some packages. Kubiak will probably use him in some kind of Taysom Hill style trick plays here or there. But where the bench is where he needs to be. And that is what is probably best for the long-term career. Learn, grow, develop, have a great teammate like Sam, show him the ropes. I do think that he has a potential to be something really special. And it's also interesting, for the first time in the John Schneider era, he's been the general manager since 2010. He came in the same year as Pete. For the first time in the John Schneider era, we can say the Seahawks actually have a quarterback succession plan. Because when they came in, it was a mix of Matt Hasselbeck and Charlie Whitehurst and Tavares Jackson, and then that never really was anything. Then they signed Matt Flynn, and then took a chance on some guy named Russell Wilson in the third round, and that ended up working out pretty okay for them, I think. But then all throughout Russell Wilson's tenure, they only drafted one other quarterback in the 7th round. Milroe is only the third quarterback drafted by John Schneider in 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, Russell Wilson. In 2018, a guy named Alex Magoo in the 7th round. If you've never heard of him, that's okay. I'm sure there's plenty of Seahawks fans who have never heard of him. And Jalen Milroe. And Jalen Milroe in the 3rd round, same round as Russell Wilson, that's the highest they've drafted a quarterback since then. So for the first time, they have there's a plan in place. Sam Darnold for a year, maybe 2, and then see if he can give the reins to Milroe.
That'd be good. And then let me run down these day 3 picks. Round 5, defensive lineman Riley Mills out of Notre Dame. Round 5, Colorado State receiver Torrey Horton. Alabama fullback Robbie Oust in round 5. They had 7 day 3 picks, by the way. The Seahawks did. Bryce Cabaldu, guard out of Kansas in round 6. Miami running back Damian Martinez, round 7. Mason Richmond, Iowa tackle, round 7. UNLV receiver Ricky White in round 7 as well. Of these day 3 picks, are any of them expected to make any sort of impact as rookies this year?
Well, there's certainly room for opportunity for Ricky White and Torrey Horton, because the Seahawks still need to figure out how to replace DK Metcalf. Those are tremendous shoes to fill, obviously. So there's, is MVS going to be the guy forever? No, it's another similar short-term deal. So there's opportunity there. The one player I'm really excited about is Damian Martinez. Big, giant, hard-running running back, Miami, bulldozer. I think that fits perfectly with what the Seahawks are going to try to do. So he's someone keep your eye on, especially with Kenneth Walker always seemingly banged up. Zach Charbonnet is solid, but certainly not irreplaceable. So I would say keep an eye on Martinez.
Coming up next on the Rise of Seahawks podcast, the best of Cardinals talk of the web. Let's move on. Look at the 2025 season and what expectations are. It's coming up next on Rise of Seahawks. We're back on the Rise of Seahawks podcast, the best of Cardinals talk of the web, talking to Kole Musgrove from the Seahawks Wire, Seahawks Wire managing editor over there. As we look ahead to the 2025 season, the NFC West, it is honestly, while the Rams are the obvious favorites because they won and still have talent that looks more or less the same, the 49ers, yeah, tell me about it, where you have that Rams team that went from being an aging team over the cap, and then now they have loaded that defense with young stars. What? No, that's not how that's supposed to work.
I hate how well that team is managed and coached.
They lose Aaron Donald and immediately get a day 3 pick in Kobe Turner, and he has 17 sacks in 2 seasons. They have the defensive rookie of the year, Braden Fisk, as a second rounder, has 8 sacks as a rookie. Byron Young has 17 sacks or something like that in 2 seasons. What? These are guys entering their 3rd year and 2nd year, and their front 7 is absurd.
And I'm so tired of old man Stafford just being shaky and always hurt and his weird veneers and but yet still he can still sling it, and I'm so sick of that guy. I try to be objective when I'm actually doing coverage of the game, but in my heart I'm still a Seahawks fan.
It makes sense, but like the 49ers are healthier, but they're definitely not a sure thing. The Cardinals, 8 wins last year, their defense on paper significantly better. They're a better team on paper than they were last year, so they should be a better team. And then you've got the Seahawks with the question marks of Sam Darnold and the offense, but you've got that defense that played well. What is sort of the expectation? Because I think, like, while the Rams are the favorite, I could think that this division very well, especially because they play the NFC South and the AFC South, you could see 3 teams with 9 wins or more, or 4 teams with 9 wins or more.
And not to mention the Seahawks went 4-2 against the division.
Right.
Last year could have easily been 5-1, but Gino had a meltdown in the red zone in that overtime game, 3 interceptions, ugly day. They could very well be competing for the NFC West. I mean, it came down to the 5th tiebreaker for the Rams to win the NFC West last year. Seahawks were in it till the end. I'll say this about the Seahawks. Every year, the Seahawks are expected to have a meltdown year, or they're expected to not do well. We saw, they go 9-7 in 2017. 2018, they were supposed to go 4-12. Well, no, they went 10-6, made the playoffs. 2021, they have their first losing record in a decade. They trade Russell Wilson. Oh, they're going to be bad. They're going to be bad again. Well, no, actually, they went 9-8 with Geno Smith and made the playoffs again. 2023, same thing. Oh, they overachieved. They won't do anything. Well, actually, no, 9-8 again, and they were in the playoff hunt to the last picture. They were a good team. It's the 4th time around of this. Oh, they moved on from Geno. They moved on from DK Metcalf, which, by the way, it's very frustrating to me that Geno Smith got no love for 3 years in the national media. The minute he's off the Seahawks, what are the Seahawks doing? He's the best quarterback ever. Oh, they can't replace Geno Smith, which, okay, I'm glad he's getting some love finally, but where was this energy any of the last 3 years? Rant aside, we're doing the same thing. We moved on from Geno. They moved on from DK Metcalf. Sam Darnold's bum. The Seahawks are going to be finished dead last in the NFC West. We're doing this again? Have they not had a 15-year track record of proving to be a consistently solid team? I don't know. I'm sure as a Cardinals fan in your 7-game losing streak to the Seahawks, you're well aware that the Seahawks can never truly be counted out ever.
No, it's frustrating. But like I think any of the 4 teams in this division could win this division. And I think that the floor, we're talking 8-9 wins for most of these teams. And in fairness, it's partially because you're playing the AFC South and you're playing the NFC South. So you've got 4 to 5 games that you should lock in a win, because playing the Saints and the Jaguars and the Panthers and the Titans and the Colts and their situations. And then you feel good about like matching up against the Falcons, and then you just worry about Tampa and Houston. And so
we're a coin flip either week. One week they'll drop 40, or they won't pick up a first down, and it's just astonishing. Which I got to ask, week 4, Thursday Night Football. That's when the Arizona Cardinals are getting their Nike rivalries uniform, right? That's got to be.
It is. It's got to be. I think it was. Don't the Seahawks get them? Like it's going to be. They're going to be releasing those, right?
Well, they said. I actually just wrote about this morning. Nike said they'll be unveiled before the first game. What does that mean? That's a pretty wide range. Does that mean like the week prior? Does that mean before kickoff of the season? Does that mean during the preseason? Does that mean tomorrow? We don't know. But my guess is Cardinals get their rivalries on week 4, hosting the Seahawks, and then the Seahawks will probably get theirs week 16, hosting the Rams on Thursday Night Football. That's my guess.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can't wait to see that, because that's an interesting wrinkle for that. And not that I'm not a big Threads guy myself. There are people who are crazy about uniforms, and I'm like, yeah, sure.
Guilty.
Well,
guilty.
Yeah,
I'm the superstitious guy who's always logging
what the record is in this.
Oh yeah, totally. I never want to see the white jersey, gray pants combo ever again.
Awesome. So, what do you think, honestly, is their floor and their ceiling for 2025?
Their floor is 7-10. I think this defense will be too good to just bottom out, and this team is just competing for a top 10 pick. I unless something catastrophic happens, I don't see a 4-13 season on the horizon. 7-10 feels more realistic. Good defense, keeps them in games. Sam Darnold is a pumpkin confirmed, and the offense, and they lose every game like 20-10, right? Like that's what I think the realistic floor for Seattle is. Ceiling, in my official, every time, well, official, it's me. With the schedule, everybody has their, win-loss prediction of the season. I put the Seahawks going 12-5.
Okay.
I think it's kind of a bit of a reverse this year. They start slow. They drop the 49ers, they drop to the Steelers. While they're just trying to iron out all the kinks and get ready. But then under this new system, they kind of figure it out and finish strong. So I think ceiling, double-digit wins, make a semi-deep run in the playoffs. This is not a Super Bowl team. Even in my most optimistic self, I'm not tricking myself into any of that kind of delusion. However, I think this will be a good, potentially very good team.
Okay, awesome. And as you look at the Seahawks, look at the Cardinals, do Seahawks fans with the current state of the team look at Arizona as a peer in terms of quality? Do they view the Cardinals ahead of them or below them?
In fairness, Seahawks probably view the Cardinals as below them. I mean, how could you not? It's, again, Seahawks are on a 7-game win streak over the Cardinals, which, by the way, it's like it used to be the Seahawks couldn't win at home, and then the Cardinals couldn't win at home.
Yeah.
And now it's turned into a thing where the Seahawks go to Arizona and blow them out. But then up in Seattle, it's always a weird, like 19-9 kind of game.
Yes.
Or 16-6, or So this year, why not? So the Seahawks will beat the Cardinals 17-7, or 18-8. Why not? Let's get weird.
Well, I think like in this division that. Mm-hmm. I personally think that, you could definitely look at Seattle as a little better than the Cardinals, especially from y'all's point of view.
Yeah.
I think the Ram, I look at the 49ers, Seahawks, and Cardinals as all about the same entering this year.
Yeah.
And the Rams is just a tick better, like just on paper.
Yeah. That's kind of how, I mean, the focus for Seattle is certainly on Arizona and Los Angeles. How could it not be? Los Angeles, certainly, because they've always been the thorn in Seattle's side historically. Doesn't matter how good the team is or how 8-8 the team is, they're always they're Seattle's kryptonite. the 49ers, obviously, they've kind of had Seattle's number recently. Mike McDonald hopefully is proving that is a thing of the past. Well, when we say we're ahead of Arizona, it's not like we're acting like we're the Eagles and we're looking down.
Right.
It's not that at all. It's not like, oh, okay, got to get past these guys. We'll see.
It's a team. You look at those games, you should win those games.
Yes, we look at the Cardinals, we're like, okay, we should win those, but it's not like if we lose, it's not like, oh my God, what a catastrophe! How did that happen? No, the Cardinals are still a good team. I think they got the right coach with Gannon. I'm someone who has never been high on Kyler Murray, like ever, but I know there's obviously a lot of people who think the world of him. Yeah, I don't know. I think the Cardinals and Seahawks will have tough games as they always do. Tough, weird games. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna look forward to two important matchups. One early in the season, primetime games. Those are weird. Do you remember the 6-6 tie? I remember the 6-6 tie.
I was in Connecticut with my family for that, and the magic of the Pacific Standard Time is games start 5 o'clock, 5:30.
There is nothing like being here on the West Coast for sports.
Oh, those poor people on the East Coast with their awful sports schedules. They have no idea how impoverished they truly are with their entertainment.
Like West Coast, Best Coast. It is. I don't know. Like now, granted, it means that the teams, especially college football, no one knows. No one in the country knows what's happening in the West.
Oh God, no! I remember because again, I have a lot of family in New England. I remember one night, we were there. It's 10 o'clock at night, and the Cougars are kicking off at 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, my God, no wonder nobody watches. No one knows what's going on. I went to bed. I woke up at like 1 a.m, and it was still the third quarter. And I'm like, good God, this is I mean, this 1 a.m. football, that was fun, but no,
West Coast sports. I feel extremely blessed to live in the
West. Staying up till midnight to watch your team lose or tie a 6-6 game. I wanted to just walk right into the Long Island Sound and not return. That was painful. I don't know. State Farm Stadium has just turned into a graveyard house of horrors for Seattle. So
wacky.
As long as I'm glad that game is so early in the season, so I don't have to dread the entire season, the annual visit to the desert.
And with that, we will wrap up this edition of the Rise Up Sea Red podcast of SR Cardinals Talk. You can, of course, find Kole's work over on the Seahawks Wire. We're familiar with that site, as every week during the offseason, I tend to do a check-in with the rest of the NFC West and feature a few stories that Kole has written to know that, this 5 Seahawks stories from last week the Cardinals fans need to know. If you are on social media, you can find him at Kole Musgrove, and we're followed by the number 23. Kole Musgrove 23, man. Appreciate the time. And as always, Kole, and hopefully we can get together for one or two of those matchups in the leading up to the games. That'd be fantastic. Maybe not the Thursday night one. Those are hard to get all the preview content in, but I don't know. Those are tough. Those are short weeks. You have to cram pack everything in. But that'll wrap it this edition of the Rise of Sea Red podcast, the best of our Cardinals talk on the web. We've got more shows coming up this month, whether it's an opponent preview or Seth and I coming back to talk about training camp. Whatever it is, the month of July has a whole bunch of shows. That's Kole Musgrove. This is Jess Roop. Thanks for listening. As always, we'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up Sea Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up Red Sea, be Red Sea Red, and of course, Rise Up Sea Red.
Run!